Welcome, one and all. It is Monday night here in the PM on this beautiful evening. Welcome to Monday Night Nerd. My name is Myers Corp Cosplay. Thank you all for joining. Thank you. As always, I couldn't do this without you guys. You guys are amazing. I'm so glad to be here. We're going to talk all about Hamilton Comic Con because I was there all weekend. It was... Not going to spoil it. We're going to talk more about that. I was about to give it away, but I'm not going to. I'm going to make you guys sit there and talk. We're going to listen a little bit before I give my full review. Usually, when I do these reviews, I do a bunch of news at the beginning. But as I said, I was at Comic-Con all weekend. I really haven't paid much attention to the news, so I really got nothing to talk about. And when I did a check before I jumped on the show, it doesn't look like much has happened this week, so I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. So we're going to jump right in. But first, before we talk about my review of Hamilton Comic Con, we're going to talk about some things I picked up while at Hamilton Comic Con, because usually I don't spend money. I've done enough of these cons that I've seen and visited every vendor that's available. So it doesn't, you see all these things 1,000 times. It's like I said back in my Toys R Us review. When I started working at Toys R Us, I started seeing these toys on almost a daily basis. So all the toys I wanted to bring home and show and collect, I didn't really want as much anymore because, well, I saw them every day. So it was almost like a second home. It's still kind of like that now because when I go to these cons, I know I'm probably going to see half of this stuff again because I do. So there's not much I pick up, but I did get a bunch of stuff this time because A, I found some cool stuff, but also there was a bunch of deals. So I picked a couple things up because I went, let's spend some money. So we're going to talk about that. But then we're going to jump into the review. Before I get any further, again, thank you folks for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. If you're live, thank you for spending your Monday with me. If this is later on in the week, if this is later on the month, in the year, in the decades, welcome. Thank you. If you could, one thing be greatly appreciated. Like the video, share it with your friends, throw it in a playlist, whatever you can do, leave a comment, tell me before I start blabbing on for the next hour about how much I love Hamilton Comic Con. What did you guys think of Hamilton Comic Con? Did you go? Did you not go? Was there a reason why you didn't go? Was there a reason you did go? What'd you like? What you didn't like? Throw it in the comments. We'll talk about that instead of me just sitting here going blah, 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 for the next hour. But let's first start off with some stuff I picked up. Because, like I said, I got a bunch of stuff. So, I know I'm totally throwing it off by ducking down and not speaking into the mic. Let's start off with something I picked up, which I normally am. I think these are pretty cool, but I do worry sometimes when I pick these up. I picked up an Icon Autographs Pop Culture Mystery Box. Now, if you don't know, Icon Autographs is I don't know what you call them. They're associated with Hamilton Comic Con, Niagara Falls Comic Con, stuff like that. And they have mystery boxes and they have autographed items that from celebrities that have been to the cons that you can purchase post-convention. You can go on their website right now, iconautographs.com. And they got some really cool stuff. Some of it's a little pricey, but makes sense. So we're going to go through this box quickly. A few of us got some boxes. So this is not just the box that I got. I cannot remember exactly what I got in this box specifically because we traded a bunch of stuff. So we each got the stuff that we wanted because you get these boxes. You may not want every single thing in it. So a bunch of us picked up a couple boxes and we switched them around to make things that we all wanted. One of the things we got is a Akoi, I believe her name is, from Wakanda Forever Pop Funko, which I don't have a lot of Marvel stuff, so this is definitely a new one that, yeah, I don't mind it. I'm probably not going to display it. I might just put it with some other ones that I've got a bunch of pops. I'm not a big pop guy. I think they're cool, but it's very rare that I pick one up because there's just a billion. When they first started coming out, I'll tell you a quick story. I am a Green Lantern fan, obviously, and I said I'm going to pick up any Green Lantern because there's got to be something there's got to be not many Green Lanterns. Like, Green Lantern's not Batman. Like, there's a billion Batmans. So I said, I'm going to buy all the Green Lanterns. And then I remembered in the Blackest Night series, there's the variations of other characters as lanterns, as well as other color lanterns. So I went, yeah, that'll be my thing, because there can't be too many. There have been so many lantern variations of almost every character. I gave up after like 2 months. I stopped doing that. And I tried to do the same with the McFarlane figures. I was like, there's so many DC Universe characters. There can't be lanterns for everything. There's been so many now. I'm done buying them. I bought one. I'm happy. Brian, listening while playing Payday 3. How is Payday 3? I've heard it's good. I played Payday 1. I didn't play 2, but I heard 3 is pretty good. Also, I picked up I got in the box a Ironheart MK1 Mark 1 from Wakanda Forever. I don't have any of the minis, so that's cool. And that's actually, I gotta say, I know there's a lot of people who don't like the design of Ironheart, but for how much detail they put in that costume in a mini, it looks pretty good. They did a good job on it. Servers are complete trash right now, but giveaways, it's sadly a problem with multiplayer games now. It's kind of why I stick with single players. Let's see. What else do we have here? I got a couple comics, which came with the box. Well, you get a comic with the box, but I'm a big comic fan, and a lot of people are kind of like, meh on comics. So I said, give me your comics. So we got The Department of Truth. I got 2 issues of that, issue 19 and 20. So I'm definitely going to check that out because that looks like a cool looking comic, as well as We'll Kill 'Em Again, which looks like a zombie army type comic from DC Horror. So I'm interested in that. That could be really fun too. There's a couple little stickers. I got a Captain America. Of course, everyone knows me, so they gave me the Hal Jordan Green Lantern. Thank you, people, for doing that. Let's see what else we got here. We got, let's save that one. I'll save that one too. I'm kind of going with screw it. I was going to go with the big ones last, but screw it. We'll go with the good ones. We'll do them all over. So this weekend, I got to work with one of the coolest wrestlers I've ever known, Mr. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I am really excited to talk about him because this is not the only thing that I was gifted from him. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. Phantom Frontier, the Department of Youth is incredible. Think Men in Black and Conspiracy Theory. Okay. All right. You got my attention. I'm interested. This one we're going to talk a little more about later. I did not have the pleasure of working with this person, but funny enough, Phantom Frontier did. This is Mr. Demetrius, and he butchered his last name, so I'm not even going to attempt it. This is from a side project he worked on called The Crooked Man, but you would probably know him best as the person in the suit for Darth Vader in the Kenobi series. Really amazing guy. We'll talk more about him later. A couple people received some autographs from another great wrestler, Miss Wendy Richter, WWE Women's Champion after WrestleMania 1. I now have 2 of hers because some people were not wrestling fans, and I said, well, I am, so I'll take 2. Why not? Who cares? So I got those. Mr. I can't remember his name now. I had it on the top of my tongue, and I can't think about it. The voice actor for My Pet Monster, which actually I remember watching a little bit when I was a kid. I think everybody remembers the big plushie. So that was cool. And last but not least, this one was a curveball and a half when I opened this one. And I'm actually really, really glad that I got this because I was a really big fan of his show when it used to be on the Comedy Network. I used to watch it religiously because I thought he was really, really funny. Mr. Mike Bullard, which I don't know what Mike Bullard's doing now, but like I said, I was a big fan of his show back in the day. And that's really cool that I got that autograph, and I'm really happy with it. And, some of these boxes you get are not too, and we'll talk more about that later. But that one made me kind of go, okay, because I don't know where the heck they pulled that from because he's not really a Comic-Con guy, but I'll take it because that's pretty dope. And the last thing I'm going to talk about before we jump into my review is something I picked up from some people that were shown to me, and I seen this out of the corner of my eye, and I kind of said, look away, don't look directly at it, because if I look at it, I'm going to want it. And then a good friend, Meg, came over and said, you should check this thing out. So I did, and then I bought it, and it's going to go up in the background. And it is a wood cutout and paint of the Paper Mario Luigi, which I think is adorable. I actually had wanted to get this as a tattoo at one point. There's a tattoo artist in New Brunswick that does the sticker style, and I was thinking this would be really cool to get as a tattoo. But now that I just have a cutout of it, I might not need to get the tattoo, because I am so picky when it comes to tattoos that's why I only have one. So that is really cool. And if you want to check those out, you can check them out at A&R Wood Designs. They're on Facebook, Instagram, and Etsy at AR Wood Signs, and on Instagram it's AR Wood Designs. They are really cool. They've got some really cool things. We were talking about not just the stuff that they have, but stuff they can do, and they were talking about pretty much able to do anything with their machines. So if you got some weird design you want, they've got almost all the the Paper Mario characters. They've got stuff that's not even made yet when it comes to Paper Mario. They can do anything pop culture-y in that style. So check them out. I might check them out later to maybe see if there's something else I want, because really cool, really good quality too. So that's the stuff I got. So I think it's time we jump into the review. But of course, before we jump into the review, as always, I have to talk about my sponsor. That sponsor is my beautiful wife. As every episode, I have one sponsor, unless someone wants to give me money for the show, and then they will become the second sponsor. But as always, my wife is my sponsor, because without her, I would not be doing this. I would be a shell of a man. And I say that truthfully, because if you knew me pre my wife and you know me now, completely different person. And that's not exaggerating at all. Hun, I love you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for always being behind me and supporting me in all the crazy stuff I do. I love you. You'll always be my sponsor. Let's talk about Hamilton Comic Con, because I have a lot to say about Hamilton Comic Con. This is obviously my hometown con, because I'm from Hamilton, a born and bred Hamiltonian, and I've been going to Hamilton Comic Con for 6 years, I believe. I attended 1 year at the beginning, and about 6 years ago, maybe twice. And ever since then, I volunteered. Hamilton Comic Con 4 years ago, 5 years ago, was my first ever volunteer con. And it was fun then. It's fun now. And this was the 10th anniversary of Hamilton Comic Con. Now, that is going to play a part in my review, as well as other factors. And those factors are, I'm not looking at this from one perspective. I'm looking at this from three perspectives, as I do with all of my convention reviews. I'm looking at this from an attendee standpoint. I'm looking at this as a volunteer. I'm also looking at this as a marketing person, because in my day job, I'm a marketer. I work on a marketing team for a corporation, and I have marketing experience. I have marketing experience because of my social media stuff when it comes to Monday Night Nerd and Myers Corp Cosplay. So there's different elements that I'm looking at. So this is not just going to be, I attended, this is how I feel. I'm looking at it from the back end, the front end, and every other end that I can see, because you need to look at these things from not just one point of view, because with one point of view, you don't see what happens on the back end. You don't see how the sausage is made, so to speak. And that really does impact what the final product is. And that's what everyone sees. So we're going to go through a day by day. And by day, I mean 2 days, Saturday, Sunday. I'm then going to give you my rating. And then I'm going to talk about things that I liked. And I'm going to do a couple things that I think need improvement. Because again, this is the 10th anniversary of this con. So as the 10th anniversary, you should expect something big. And I don't know if they delivered in that. But we'll talk about that. And we'll talk about some other stuff. All right, let's kick things off. Saturday morning, bright eye and bushy-tailed. My wife's in chat. Hellgirl was more than 9 years ago, I think. I think we did Hamilton Comic-Con for the first time 7-8 years ago. As my wife probably knows, my math is off, so she's probably right. It was probably more like 7-8 years ago. Anyways, Saturday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to go to Comic-Con. We had to be there as I was volunteering in the celebrity area, as I do at a couple of these cons. We had to be there at 9 in the morning, bright-eyed, ready to go. And we weren't, as always, because we're all sitting there going, oh, we got 2 long days ahead of us. But we always know it'll be fun. So it was a really good start when I woke up. And then I put on the Facebook and the Instagrams, and I realized that 2 of the major celebrities that were booked for the convention canceled at the last minute. And that would be Christian from AEW, the only active wrestler that was going to be at the show, and Eric Estrada from Chips, which was also kind of bumming because I had met him before, and he is amazing. He was such a great guest. He came up, said hi to all of us as volunteers, took pictures with us. Great guy. Never watched the show, heard good things about him, was pleasantly surprised that everything was true. So that was a little bit of a bummer. And we'll talk more about this later, but that kind of dictated a little bit of the con. I got up, we went to the venue. The venue is the Warplane Heritage Museum, Mount Hope, Ontario, just the top of Hamilton. It's technically Mount Hope, whatever. It's the problem of Hamilton and Toronto. Well, more Hamilton than Toronto, actually. They've moved the borders so much, but still kept the town name. So it's like, what's Hamilton, what's not? So anyways, just by the Hamilton Airport, the Warplane Heritage Museum, which they have had for, I think, 4 or 5 years. They used to be down at the convention center down in the middle of Hamilton downtown, but now they're up there. I don't know why. I'm assuming there's financial reasons why, but I don't know enough about it, but we'll talk more about that later too. But yeah, we got there. Venue was set up, ready to go. Everyone's rocking and rolling, getting ready for the VIPs to come in at 9:30, and then the guests or the fans coming in at 10 o'clock. The way they had the celebrity area laid out this year was odd. Now, if you've never been, the Warplane Heritage Museum is basically a big rectangle that holds some of the warplanes from the past. And what they do is they kind of push them off to the side, and Hamilton Comic-Con kind of takes up half of the room. And it's almost in like, if you put a rectangle on top of a sideways triangle. So it's a box, and then it kind of cuts in to a point. And the celebrities are kind of at the top of the rectangle. Now, in the past, they've done them right at the top of the rectangle. Some years they've done it down the side. This year they did them at the top, but they also did a second row underneath and had the lines sort of facing into each other. Now, that can cause problems when it comes to people waiting in line, because when you do that, you've got people lining up down here and you've got people lining up there, and they start to do this. And we have to try and keep this area in the middle open because fire, traffic, foot traffic, etc. So when we first saw the layout, or at least when I first saw the layout, I kind of panicked and went, uh-oh, if we get nuts, this could be a problem, because we obviously don't want to have, a big guest there and have a big snake line. So it starts at the end and then we have to cap it or cut it off and say no one else can line up for it, because we don't want to do that. But there comes a point when sometimes it gets so full in a line, we have to, because otherwise they're going to be spilling out everywhere. With the cancellation of Christian and the cancellation of Eric Estrada, those were kind of two of our biggest celebs, I assumed. And other than that, there wasn't a ton of issue with that layout. We had a little bit of a fill when the con first opened. Specifically, guests like Danielle Harris from the Halloween series. She was pretty full when the day first started. I'll talk more about him later, but Abdullah the Butcher from the world of professional wrestling was next to my table at Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And he had a very big line, bigger than I expected, seeing as he is someone who's not been in the WWE. And a lot of hardcore fans wanted to meet him. So I was a little concerned of how that was going to lay out. But like I said, with not a lot of people there, it wasn't that bad. It actually worked out pretty nice for us because we could kind of see everything from almost every section, every point in that line. When Hacksaw Jim Duggan got there, I knew the minute he walked in, it was going to be a good weekend. Hacksaw is a legend in the WWF, WWE world, a Hall of Famer from 2011. He came in and he was with his wife. I believe her name is Linda. And they were both super friendly. Now, I'm never going to name names, but there have been certain celebrities who come in with significant others or agents from their agency that, you know, the con talks to and gets them to come in. And it may not be the celebrity who's an issue, because I honestly can't think of any celebrities that I've dealt with that have been issues. But sometimes the agent has other plans and is just becomes a middleman and becomes an issue because you feel like you have to talk through him to get to the celebrity. Jim and Linda were amazing. They were both friendly. They both talked to me. They both, as soon as they came, "Hi, what's your name?" "My name's Mike." "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Jim." "I'm Linda. Great to meet you. So glad to be here. Is there any, like, what do we need to do anything? Is there anything you need from us?" And I just went, "Dude, it's your show. Have fun. I'm here to help you." And it was great helping them. He sat down with everybody that came by. He asked everybody their name, whether they were getting an autograph, getting a photo, just coming up to say hi, asked their name, said, "Hey, how are you? Are you still watching wrestling? Who's your favorite current wrestler? Who's your favorite old-time wrestler?" Had conversations with them, talked about stories here and there about his time in the business. One of the biggest things that Hacksaw did, and for those who are not big wrestling fans, the Royal Rumble, the 30-man over-the-top battle royal, is one of the biggest pay-per-views that WWE puts on every year. And the first one was held in Hamilton at Copps Coliseum many years ago. I believe it was 1987. And Hacksaw Jim Duggan was the first winner of the inaugural Royal Rumble in Hamilton. So there's a lot of people wanting to talk about that moment because they remember it from their childhood. I was -1 at the time, so I don't remember it, but I have seen it since then, and it is actually really cool to see Copps Coliseum back in the day and him winning it. I believe it was only 20-man back at that one. I believe the first one was only a 20-man Royal Rumble, but it was still amazing. So he's got a lot of history here, and it was just so nice to see a celebrity, especially at his age. He's had some health problems recently, but you just couldn't wipe the smile off his face, which was so good. And you just know when you sit down and you start working with somebody like that as a volunteer, you know it's going to be a great weekend. And that just makes so much easier because I got to admit, after about 12 o'clock, it got really slow at the con. Again, I don't know how much Christian and Eric Estrada, because they were the only cancellations, that they played a factor into it. But after 12 o'clock, we got really slow. And it was a little it was a little weird because usually there's at least one guest that's just killing it. Like I get that the celebrities that usually go to Hamilton Comic Con, and I don't know how which ones are picked for certain cons and other cons, because the guys that own this one also own Niagara and now Nickel City and Frightmare, which is going to be coming up this next month. I don't know how they choose what celebrities work on which show, but I realize that Hamilton's got more of the older celebrities. I think this is just a thought that because Hamilton and CHCH are so combined, they show a lot of old shows like Chips and Dallas and stuff like that. I think they try and get that type of audience to come up to the con. So they also have a big wrestling reunion. So there's always a lot of wrestlers there and a lot of the older wrestlers. But there's usually one that sort of takes the cake and goes, okay, this person's going to be busy almost all weekend. Like one year we had Henry Winkler, we've had Shawn Michaels, we've had Kurt Angle, we've had Mick Foley. There's usually one that's like, okay, this guy's swamped. There wasn't this year. And that was a little shocking. Like, if you've ever been to a Comic-Con, you know, the Doctor Who Society's there, and they have their big Daleks that go running around the con, just having fun with people. Well, they went through the area between the two celebrity lines, and usually we have to kind of go, oh, watch yourselves, folks. Daleks are coming through. We didn't have to do that. And Meg, my another one of the volunteers, mentioned it to me and was like, we didn't have to move anybody. That's not good. Like, we should usually be pushing people aside, and they just went through and didn't have to touch anybody. So that was a sign that we're like, oh, it's not good, because we need people to start spending money in these with these autographs. The thing though is, when you went through the vendor area where all the tables where we could buy stuff, there was a bunch of people. So I don't know if it was just an overall thing or if it was just the autograph section. I don't know. I don't have the numbers. I'm not that deep into it, but that's just how it felt to me. JS, glad you had a good time. Thank you, sir. I hope you had a great weekend. I know you guys can't make it down. JS, part of the Geeks & Co. folks. I hope you had a great weekend as well. So we got a little slow around that time, and it got to about 2:00, and I just started to feel a little off. Like, not sick, but like, I don't know. I've talked about on the show, like, I have some stomach issues, and if I eat certain things that I don't normally eat, I sort of feel bleh about it. So I had some food that I wasn't 100% on, and I wasn't sure how it was going to sit with me, and it really didn't sit well with me. Usually if I'm busy, I can usually just focus on that and I can ignore it. But because we were so slow, it just kept like bugging me about it, bugging. And finally I said, look, we're dead. I highly doubt we're going to get nuts now. Like, it's 3:00. The con ends at 5. We're not going to get some big rush at the last minute. Why don't I head home? Because we had dinner plans with a bunch of us after. So I didn't want to feel like crap, go home, and then have to go out for dinner with everybody. So I went home early, took a sleep, felt great after that, and then went out to dinner with some friends to a local restaurant called The Mule, a taco place, which we'll probably never be visiting again. Nothing against the food or anything, but their prices have become a little too much for myself and I think others. So, you know, if you want to check it out, they make really good tacos and it's a really cool atmosphere, but be ready to pay because they're getting a little pricey. Other than that, had a bunch of friends sleep over. A bunch of us came back here. We just played music for a bit. I hit the bed early because I like my sleep. They stayed up till like 2-3 in the morning, and I felt like, what's his name from Lethal Weapon, going, I'm getting too old for this shit. And so I went to bed early before they did. They were really tired in the morning. I was slightly tired, but they were really out of it. But yeah, that was Saturday, and that's usually the crazy day because everybody usually shows up on Saturday, but because it was so slow, it was not really that bad. So we were kind of interested to see how Sunday was going to go, because Sunday's usually pretty slow. We got there Sunday morning, same time, 9 a.m., ready to go. And it kind of felt the same. Like we had a rush at the beginning when everybody first arrived, but throughout the day, it kind of got a little slow. Again, I think it stayed more consistent than the Saturday, but it still was slow. And again, I don't know how much those two cancellations meant. I don't know. I assume, you know, X thousands of people didn't just say, well, I'm not going because Christian and Eric Estrada aren't going to be there. But I still feel like it may have had an impact on it. Sunday morning Kelsey is iconic. We're not going to talk about that on the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about some of the celebrities I ran into while we were there. Let's start off with the person who was on the opposite side of me, who Dave Thorne from Fandom Frontier was helping with, and that was Demetrius. And he, as I said earlier, he was the man who is in the suit for the Kenobi series as Darth Vader. He was hilarious. Now, if you have seen the Kenobi series, you know how amazing he is as Darth Vader, but you might not know is he was in Cirque du Soleil in a previous life, and he was showing off his skills, including handstands, juggling, and spinning a lightsaber all over the place. And he was a hoot. He was really cool, really freaking tall. Really cool guy. Glad I got to meet him, listen to him talk about being Vader and just life in general for a little bit. And it was really nice to meet him. I like guys like that, not just, you know, because they're Star Wars guys, but people that are just willing to chat and just, you know, tell stories and stuff. I really enjoy that. I remember, I'll tell you a quick story from a past Comic-Con that I really enjoy. Working with who was I working with? I was working with Mick Foley a couple years ago, and next to Mick Foley was Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man. And I'm a big wrestling fan, so I was kind of trying to listen to him because he's a big story guy. And he was talking about back in the day when he had the $1 Million Man gimmick. His thing was he spent money all over the place and wore fancy suits and had the $1 Million title, which had all these rhinestones and gold on it. And soon after, well, I shouldn't say soon after, but a few years later, Ric Flair joined the WWE. And Ric Flair has a reputation to spend money. And he's going out and spending money on women and booze and partying and etc. Well, that's sort of what the $1 Million Man did, but as a gimmick. And I guess one night they were out. I'm going to try and remember all the details. This was a few years ago. And Ted DiBiase said he saw Rick going out and spending money and living the Ric Flair life. And he saw, and Rick called Ted over and said, you know, I'm doing this and I'm living my Ric Flair life. Like, how do you do it? Like, I don't see you struggling kind of like Flair is to keep that lifestyle. And Ted looks over at Rick and says, well, that's because I'm not spending my money. I'm spending Vince's money because Vince is giving me a budget to just be the $1 Million Man. You're spending your own money to be Ric Flair. So I still get a paycheck and that goes straight in the bank. Yours goes to everything else. And Rick had a good laugh about it. Rick continued to be Ric Flair for the next, you know, still Ric Flair now in a different version. But I always found that funny that both of them had the same gimmick, but one of them was spending the boss's money and one of them spending their own money. Who's the smart one in this relationship? But yeah, Demetrius was amazing. He was such a nice guy. Everybody was laughing, walking by him, seeing him do all his tricks and stuff. It was really cool. I really do hope he comes back. I think he mentioned something about wanting to do some panels to show sword fighting with the lightsaber and stuff. That is the guest that you should bring back 100%. Sean Weiss. Let's talk about Sean Weiss. Goldberg from the Mighty Ducks was at the Comic-Con. He has had some issues in the past when it comes to substances. He's cleaned up now. He's doing good. And it was really cool to see a character from a movie that I'm a huge fan of. I'm a Ducks guy. I I like the Anaheim Ducks now because of the Mighty Ducks movie. Not the Mighty Ducks 1, though. I grew up with Mighty Ducks 2 and 3. 1 came out before I was really a fan. So I like 1, but I'm more of a 2 and 3 fan. But it was still amazing to meet him. I wore, if you've been on my social media, you've seen it. I wore my Anaheim 25th anniversary jersey. I've got up there, you can see the bill of it. I made the Mighty Ducks mask, the duck mask in a goalie version, similar to what their old logo used to be like. And I brought that to the con, and Sean wore it, and we took some photos with it. He messaged me today and said he would love one of those for his room, and I would love to make him one. But he was sweet. He was really, really cool. Like I said before, Abdullah the Butcher was my neighbor for the con, and he was having a blast with everybody, laughing, having fun. Everybody having fun with him, talking about the old days of wrestling, and his gimmick was stabbing people with a fork, and he's got all these forks lined up that he's autographed, and he looked like he was having a hoot. Who else did I run into? Ran into Danielle Harris finally. As a big Halloween fan, Danielle Harris was in number 4 and number 5, the Thorn trilogy. And it was so nice to meet her. She is a friend. Leslie picked up an autograph last year. She was at Frightmare. I was unfortunately not able to go. So I have an autograph from her, and it was nice to finally shake her hand and tell her how big of a fan I am of hers. I got to meet Demolition from the WWF, Axe and Smash, who, can you say anything better about Axe and Smash? Their rivalry with the LOD and Nasty Boys and everything else from the 90s was amazing. They're two great guys. They've been around the con circuit a bunch. I haven't really got a chance to sit down and talk with them. As I said, with all my other wrestling guests that I ever meet, they are the best babysitters any kid could ask for, because they were babysitters to us. They taught us good from bad, and that good conquered evil, and they took care of us when our parents were busy. So great to see them. It was really cool. And that was pretty much all the big celebrities. Hacksaw at this moment, however, was delivered a 2x4 delivery. And so Hacksaw Jim Duggan, if you're not a wrestling fan, used to run around with a big 2x4 and would whack people with a 2x4. That was his thing. So he brought a few short 2x4s to autograph for people to have. And he brought a few, but obviously you can't bring 10,000 2x4s on a plane. So he knew somebody in the area and said, "Hey, do you mind picking up a bunch and cutting them for me and bringing them to the con? Be greatly appreciative." Well, I think he needed to specify a little more what the amount had to be, because when he arrived, he had a hockey bag on wheels full of short 2x4s. There had to be at least 30 in there. And even Jim kind of had a look like, I don't know if I'm going to get through all these. So he tried. I don't want to say he pushed them, but they kind of were like, "Do you want a 2x4? Because we kind of got to get rid of them." They got rid of a few. It wasn't terrible. But other than that, like the show slowed down around noon, like last time, or like Saturday. And it kind of died around 3, which usually happens at a con. Like if you've done enough of these cons, you know that 3 o'clock, if the con ends at 5, 2 hours before 3 o'clock, it's going to die. Like people got to get planes. People got to go do other things. They never, like the celebrities are usually gone early. It's the way it is. If you're ever going to a con, if you want an autograph, don't wait till the last minute on the last day. If people have other things they have to get to, flights, cars, etc. Don't wait. And that, honestly, it kind of just petered out, sadly. Like there wasn't any big to do. There wasn't any big, like, Sometimes there might be some photo, like they might ask a couple guests if they want to get some group photos with the volunteers. There wasn't this year. Yeah, it kind of just slowly dwindled away, which was a little sad. I mean, for the 10th anniversary, I kind of felt like there'd be more of a, I don't want to say a kaboom at the end, but something. It just kind of petered out. And as it petered out, there was a hockey bag full of 2x4s that needed to go somewhere. And I guess Jim and Linda went and talked to the building and said, "Do you guys need any 2x4s?" And they said, "No." So I now have a big hockey bag full of 2x4s in my garage because it's wood. Like, wood's expensive now, and I might need it for a project. So I took them home. They gifted them to me. I have an autographed one down in my garage as well. But yeah, I have a whole bunch of blank 2x4s that aren't autographed that are just sitting in my garage. So I got to figure out what the hell to do with now. You can't say no to that stuff because, you know, it's a memory. It's like that piece of confetti I grabbed from Randy Orton winning the WWE Championship for the first time. Like, you never know. It's just a memory. It's stupid. No one else cares about it, but I do. I'll know this 2x4 was held by Hacksaw Jim Duggan. But yeah, it just kind of petered out. And that was kind of it. Like, we hung around a little bit at the end as they tore down. And by 4 o'clock, I was on my way home. And that's it. My overall review of the con, I sadly have to say, is a 6 out of 10. And I don't want to say I expected more, but it's your 10th anniversary. Like, you've got a con for 10 years, and you've got obviously a reputation of this is the only big con. Like, I think it's the only con left in Hamilton. And that's it. Edith. Oh my God. I did. Yeah, he gave me the whole bag. Yeah, it's I don't know. So let's go into the things I liked. Let's go into the things I liked. I like the type of guests that this con gets. If you're a fan of the old school actors and wrestling, this is your con. Because like I said, you had there's some of the smaller guests, which I know a con like a Fan Expo, or even to the point now for how big Niagara Falls is getting, it's not really their specialty. So some of the voice actors, some of the Degrassi people were there. Matthew Taylor from Nemesis from the Resident Evil movie, he was on the Geeks & Co. show. He was there. Some of these smaller actors that not many people can think of, it's really cool to see them at a Comic-Con. They're usually some of the nicest guests too. So I really like the type of guest that they bring, as well as the wrestlers. Because like I said, Niagara seems to get more of the big names, and some of the older generation, and I don't want to say less obscure, but some of the smaller ones are at Hamilton, and I kind of like meeting them too. The variety of vendor. I enjoy Hamilton because it does seem like some of the vendors there I don't see at other cons, and even cons that are associated with the owners that, again, own Niagara and Nickel City. I don't know if it's specifically because they're local. Like, I know Mohawk is there and they're a sponsor, so they have a big booth there, but it just seems like maybe it's the layout and it's just a different layout than some of the other cons. But I really do enjoy some of these smaller vendors because, you know, I picked up the Luigi, and I don't think I've ever seen that booth before. So I picked stuff like that up, and I know some of the other volunteers in chat and that went to the con. They picked up a bunch of little crochet guys, which were a big hit. So I really enjoy seeing things that I don't normally see, being, you know, I don't want to say a veteran of Comic-Cons, but I've been going for almost 13 years. Layout. There's an asterisk on this. For the celebrities, I like the way the layout was done this year. However, I like the way the layout was done this year because of who was there. As I said at the beginning, I feel if we had a bigger guest, we would have been in trouble with the lines going into each other. I think if Christian was there, we would have been in trouble. I also think if Eric Estrada was there, based on how I've seen him do at other cons, he would have been a problem too. So based on how busy we were, that layout worked out very well because, like I said, if you walk down the lane, you kind of saw both sides and you saw all the guests instead of just, if they're all in one straight line, if you stick in this area, you don't see everybody down here. So those are my three things. I like the guests, the type of guests. I like the vendors because they're something I don't normally see at other cons. And I like the layout. You know what? Here's the thing. He didn't. So, yeah, and by the way, as Dave says in the chat, I wheel out a hockey bag. I couldn't carry everything. I had my backpack, I had my stuff, and I now have this giant hockey bag full of 2x4s. Again, here's the thing. I know I'm going to be doing a project where I'm going to need a 2x4, a small, like, bracing 2x4. And I'm going to go, I had a bloody bag of them that were gifted to me, and I didn't take them home. So I had to take them home because I know I'll need them sooner or later. Anyways, back to the show. Things that need improvement. Now, again, I'm going to look at this from three points of view. As an attendee / volunteer, as a marketer. No, as an attendee, as a volunteer, and as a marketer. The venue, the Warplane Heritage Museum. As I said earlier, I don't know why they choose this venue. I don't know if they get a discount because the Warplane Heritage Museum, if you buy a ticket for Comic-Con, you also get to go through the Warplane Heritage Museum. So there's a lot of foot traffic through the museum, which I doubt would be there any other day. However, it is on the outskirts of the town, the city. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt to get to. It's not the best venue for a Comic-Con. The problem is, though, where else do you put it? Right? Like, you have a couple options. The convention center, which they tried, which I've heard they've had issues with because it's 3 levels and people don't like doing this all day. So that's out. I always said doing a Comic-Con at Cops Coliseum would be cool. Problem is, next year Cops Coliseum is going to be torn down, so that's kind of out for now. A friend of mine, Bite Props Cosplay, mentioned doing it at Mohawk. I think that'd be kind of cool. I wonder how the load in, load out would be it, because it's not really built for that. But yeah, I think it's an okay venue. I do think they may need to change it, though, because I have heard a lot of people aren't big fans of going all the way out there for a Comic-Con. Again, I don't know the background when it comes to if there's any deals or anything and how much extra would be to go anywhere, but yeah, I'm getting a little iffy with that venue. Canceling last minute. Now, this is obviously based around the guests, and in most cases, if a guest cancels, it happens. I think I've talked about it here on the show. These celebrities are humans. They have lives. They have things pop up, illnesses, family emergencies, 10,000 other reasons, just like every single one of us. From what I've seen, based on what happens on social media and such, I can only assume that on Wednesday, I saw someone mention, or they asked on the Hamilton Comic-Con Facebook page about Christian not appearing, because Christian was booked for AEW for 2 shows over the weekend in North Carolina, I believe. And the person was asking, so if he's booked for 2 shows over the weekend, how are you going to have him at Comic-Con as well? Are you going to be flying him from North Carolina to Hamilton, back to North Carolina, back to Hamilton, back to North Carolina? And I think when you notice something like that, it kind of puts a lot of doubt in people's minds if he's going to attend. If I was the con, if I was running the con, if I was running their social media team, I would have said something within 24 hours of that kind of coming to light. Again, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. I don't know any of that stuff. But I think when the fans start calling out the obvious, I think you need to say something. And I don't know, again, I don't know if they tried to reach out to AEW or whoever the agency is and tried to get a replacement or what. But canceling the morning of 3 hours before doors open looks really bad. If it was a last minute thing, that's one thing. Like the Eric Estrada thing, that's all I know is it was a last minute thing. I don't know anything about that. But I'm knowing the Christian thing and knowing that wrestling fans, AEW fans kind of know what's going to happen on the weekend when it comes to the show. And if he's on the poster, like I would have at least said on Wednesday, hey, we understand the concern. We are looking into it. There is a possibility he might not be able to come, but we're doing our absolute best to try and either find a replacement or something. BS if you have to at that point. I know it's not the right thing to do, but looking at it from a business standpoint, I understand you don't want to disappoint your fans. Disappointing them the morning of and disappointing them when they get there and realizing and being told by us that person's not there after they possibly have drove 3-4 hours, then it's a problem. So again, I know all cancellations and stuff like that are not something everybody can control, but when you kind of have something like what happened with the Christian situation, I think you need to kind of do a little due diligence and maybe be a little bit more forthcoming with what's happening behind the scenes. Again, I don't know all the details, but from what it looks like to me and this is me looking at it from a marketing standpoint and looking at it from a fan standpoint, that did not come off good. And I believe the line was used on the morning of post was, we were up all night working on it. I think a lot of people called their bluff on that one. Were they up all night? I don't know. But I think a lot of people called BS on that one. I'm just telling you what I read. So that's a problem. And I think that needs to be addressed going forward. I think their social media needs to be a little clearer and a little more honest about, the cons in general. Maybe not even just Hamilton. I think overall with Niagara and Nickel City. Last is something we talked about at the beginning of the show, and that is the Icon autograph boxes. So I picked up one, and like I said, a couple others picked up some too. And, we didn't pay, hundreds of dollars. We only paid a certain amount. I'm not going to say how much, but we paid a certain amount. And we were a little disappointed by the boxes. Now, were these, I don't know the details, but we went, I think it was 4 or 5 of us that bought boxes because we always wanted to see what was in them. So we picked up 4 or 5 boxes, and I think 3 to 4 of us got a Wendy Richter autograph. And I think 2 of us got the same comics, and I think 3 of us got the same Funkos. And yeah. So when you're buying 3, when you could possibly be selling more than 1 box to somebody, I would be worried about that if you're selling, if I bought 5 boxes, because, maybe they're on dirt cheap. Maybe like, oh, $20, we'll give you a box. If I bought 5 boxes and got 4 of the same autograph, I'd be a little ticked. Thankfully, we divided them up and we passed them out to each other, so it wasn't a big problem. But I think if you bought multiple boxes, I think that could be an issue. Now, again, I'm not saying they did it on purpose. I'm not saying I might be an oversight, might be just these are the boxes that were left and we kind of just threw them together. I don't know. Not blaming anybody. I'm just saying this is what I saw. And so I would say there needs to be a little bit more, fine tuning, checking when it comes to these things. Because like I said, if I was a dad and I got 2 kids, 3 kids, and I bought boxes for each one of them, and they open them up and they pretty much have the same boxes, I'd be going, is this really a mystery, or did you pack 100 boxes with the same stuff? So, again, I don't know. But, itchy. But that's my review of Hamilton Comic Con. Overall, like I said, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think it was an okay con. I feel it was a little bit disappointing for a 10th anniversary. I hope next year they do a little more when it comes to the celebrities specifically. I think having 2 big headliners was a great idea and concept, but I think it falling apart at the end with the cancellations hurt. I think what happened on social media may have hurt the reputation. Again, there's a lot of people that'll talk smack on social media and then not, next year they're back doing it again. So I can't really say that those people are never going to go to Comic-Con again, but I just feel like, as a big thing in marketing is brand reputation. And I feel like if you start digging that brand up a little bit, it's not going to be as pristine as it once was. And I think when you've got so many options throughout the year when it comes to Comic-Cons, I mean, even just I'm in Hamilton, and within a year, I've got Toronto Comic-Con, Fan Expo Canada, Niagara Falls Comic-Con, Hamilton Comic-Con, London Comic-Con, Frightmare in the Falls, if you're a horror fan, Anime North, Toronto Anime. Like, you've got almost 10 cons in a year. You can't do all of them. Like, even me, who volunteers and doesn't have to pay to get into half of these, I'd have to rent a hotel for some of them, and paying for hotels every, couple weeks or couple months, it adds up. So I think with so many cons in the area, the brands that these people build when they do these cons really needs to be as pristine as possible, because I think it's going to be very easy for attendees to just look and go, throw a rock in a month and there'll be another Comic-Con, kids. We don't have to go to this one. So I'm hoping that's not the case. I hope next year is bigger and better. I hope if the venue stays the same, it's not a big deal. I think it'd be great to have an upgrade to a bigger venue. I think, like I said, the social media thing is good. I think they need to work on that. And the autograph boxes is a little bit of an issue as well. But again, overall, it was a good con. I got nothing really bad to say about it. I think overall it was a great weekend for me. I hope everybody that went had a great time. It seemed like everybody had a great time. There's lots of smiles on their faces, lots of people laughing and joking. I just think they could go a little bigger and better. That's from a 7-8 year vet, as my wife would say. Folks, thank you for watching. If you're still here, greatly appreciate it. If you could hit the like, subscribe, all those things on this video, be so grateful. Thank you so much. It'll tell the algorithm and everybody else that this is good content. Now, we're going to do a quick song of the week, and then I'm going to tell you what's happening next week. Song of the week. Last week, we had a metal song. We had Karate by Baby Metal. This week, we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to go with somebody who I would love to guest at a Comic-Con. I think this person, no matter what con, would do amazing. I don't know if he does Comic-Cons. I've never seen him really at a Comic-Con, but I think people should talk to him and get him on the concert because he will kill around here. And that person is Tom Green. And if you didn't know, Tom Green, before he became Tom Green, was in a rap group called Organized Rhyme. And they have a song called Check Check the OR. It is such a good song. I'm such a fan of it. He is amazing in it. So go to my YouTube. Well, you're on my YouTube page. If you're not watching this on Facebook, go to my YouTube page. I made a playlist of Song of the Week, Monday Night Nerd. I've added the song there, Organized Rhyme, check the OR. Check it out. It's amazing to hear Tom Green rap, and he's actually good at it. So check that out. Like I said, I would love to have him at Comic-Con. I would love to meet him. I think he's an amazing guy. He's up on a farm just north of Toronto, so it's not like it's far for him to get here. Next week, Monday Night Nerd. There's going to be a guy right here. He's probably going to be right here on my lap. That is Mr. Fandom Frontier in the chat. Dave Thorne, famous actor Dave Thorne, will be here. And you're probably wondering, why is Dave Thorne? Who's Dave Thorne? Well, Dave Thorne is an actor. Dave Thorne is also a fellow volunteer, a fellow nerd, and also he used to have a podcast called Fandom Frontier. And if you don't know, Dave was the first one to let me open my big mouth on a podcast. His show Fandom Frontier about a year ago, and I thought nothing would be better to bring him on the show and talk not only conventions, not only his love of nerddom, video games, and everything else, but he's also a big horror fan. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot more of that next week. The first guest will be Dave Thorne here on the Monday Night Nerd podcast. You should tune in because he's a really good guy, and we're going to have a lot of laughs. We're going to talk a whole bunch of stuff. So I will see you all next week. Thank you again for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Like I said before, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit all that share stuff, all that great stuff. It would be greatly appreciative. I will see you next week. First guest, Dave Thorne, will be here. And until then, folks, stay nerdy. I'll see you guys next week. See ya. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.